A warm welcome back to our audiences, those of you here with me at the Plaza Hotel in downtown Brussels, and those of you who are online. Those of us here at the Plaza have just stuffed our faces with pastries, so just to let you know that, I hope you have done something similar at home. And so here we are, we're moving directly into the second of 3 sessions this morning in this workshop session. This is the second. It's called Connecting with Youth. And I'd like you in the room, please, to give a very, very warm welcome to our next speaker. She's from the European Commission, from DG EAC. Her name is Daphne Hobarex, and she is Programme Assistant in charge of youth policy and programmes. So a very warm welcome, and welcome to you, Daphne. I love that Daphne, the technicians just said, you've got a jingle to enter to, and I thought it was kind of something like the final countdown, and it was just something like an alien speaking to us from space. But thank you for the jingle. I hope that made you feel suitably important. I have some questions, if I may. Talk about the European Year of Youth this year and what your role is. So you're very much part of this, and give us perhaps, for the benefit of our audience and those at home, a kind of a top-line overview of what it's all about.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. I'm very happy, although it's a bit intimidating. I feel I'm sitting at the Oscar ceremony right now, but so my name is Daphne Hobarex, and I work in the Commission, in the Directorate General for Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. And I'm a member of a team of around 60 people whose mission is to create opportunities for young people in Europe. So for this, we have a set of tools. We have policy, we have an EU youth strategy, we have programs like everybody knows Erasmus+. We had to represent the young man here before. Ruben had done Erasmus, like many people in this room, I'm sure. We also implement the European Solidarity Corps, which is about volunteering. We also have traineeship office. It means that we have trainees at the Commission. We run the program. And of course, this year, we have the chance to be implementing the European Year of Youth. So why do we have a year of youth? It's the president of the Commission, President von der Leyen, in her her speech for the State of the Union in September 2021, who said that it would be good if 2022 would be the European Year of Youth, because this generation suffered a lot during the pandemic. Many young people lost their jobs. Many had to go back and live with their families. It made education much more challenging because they had to sit at home and not with their peers. So it made life much more difficult. So it was decided to have this year of youth to celebrate young people and to create more opportunities for them. So what does it mean? How can we celebrate more young people? So one thing is that we are putting in place a new program called ALMA, which is a program that aims at giving temporary work abroad opportunity for young people who have no particular educational background, they don't have a job, and so it's really to be as inclusive as possible and to make sure that everyone can have their Erasmus moment. So that's one thing. Another thing, how to celebrate young people this year is by doing even more promotion and more funding, give more funding opportunities for young people. So for example, we will celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Erasmus Plus program. We also use the European Solidarity Corps to accelerate the green transition by having more volunteering opportunities for young people in, for example, fight against biodiversity loss or climate change. And finally, another thing that we've done is that we've identified 8 policy areas that require our particular attention, like the green, the digital, culture, employment, participation to democratic life, health. Of course, mental health was a big issue also during the pandemic.
And you promote those themes, or you provide funding for initiative in those themes, or what are those when you talk about those priority areas?
Yes. we promote those themes. We have a place called online that's called the European Youth Portal, and it's really a one-stop shop for everything related to youth across the EU. So young people can apply for the European Solidarity Corps or Discover EU, for example.
I think that's a very helpful point you make, because I know it's less difficult for me in this Brussels bubble to understand when I go online and I look at various DGs and I try to look at funding or initiatives, and I need to pick my way through. So I think explaining that there is that one-stop shop portal is very useful, because there are lots of different sort of support and funding opportunities and other kinds of support that the EU gives. So it's good to have it under one roof, I think.
Absolutely. It makes me realize that when I was talking about what we do as a team in the Commission, in the youth unit, I didn't mention my baby, which is a project called Discover EU, which is about green travel and about connecting people. So it's, of course, very relevant for this week. So it's something, it started as a preparatory action of the European Parliament in June 2018. And we said that we wanted to have, we had 3 months to make 15,000 young people travel in the European Union by rail, which is a green mode of transport. We were a bit stressed thinking, how are we going to do that in only 3 months? And so we worked really hard. And on the first day when the application round opened, we were very anxious after 1 day. And in fact, the IT team told us, don't worry, we have 30,000 applicants.
And then you had that
so
issue
we were
to
really happy. And we young people really embraced this green travel experience. They connect with each other. In 4 years, we had more than 330,000 young people applying, and they took ownership of the Facebook group. We have 60,000 young people connecting with each other, meeting each other, all this by rail, and it's very exciting. And in those turbulent times, it's very nice to witness all that.
And it's very important too, I think, because in terms of competence, the EU doesn't have that in education. I mean, the difficult thing I always find is you've got to sort of keep your fingers out of that, out of the pie of education, sort of within member states. So it's critical, like you say, that people took hold of it, they took ownership of it, they ran with it. I'm going to move on, only because time is of the essence, but just on an amusing front, Ruben, who you mentioned, thinks that youth is from 0 to 7, so age. What is youth for the European Commission when you talk about, I'm joking, but what do you see as youth? What does the Commission see, 18 to 35? Or when I used to work on campaigns with the Commission, youth had different age brackets for the Commission. What do you see as youth?
Well, Katerina, if you ask me, I think youth is not a question of figures, but a question of energy.
You are so right. Nice, nice. There you go. You're all right, mate. You're all right.
But that said, I must be careful here, because we have different programs with different age range. If I remember correctly, Erasmus Plus, we have projects about participation of young people that start at the age of 13.
Right.
Traineeships in the Commission, if I remember correctly, is until 32. So between 32 and 35.
Sort of keep an eye.
I'd say 13, 35.
Okay.
Quite large, although I'm out of it, obviously. But
important in the time we have. I need to can you share 2 or 3 initiatives, really sort of concisely, that from this year that are going to resonate with this particular audience? You mentioned there the Connecting People theme, and also with that theme of European Mobility Week.
Yes, so I'll try to be quick while not speaking too fast.
Okay.
So the first thing, on the European Youth Portal, we have an amazing platform that we set up in particular especially for the Year of Youth. It means that young people can go there and see the events that are taking place all across Europe. It ranges from debates on the future of the labor market to information sessions on how to apply to a European Solidarity Corps project. For example, this year in Paris, it's La Semaine de l'étudiant sur l'écologie et la solidarité. So there's really many events all across Europe. It's very varied. And of course, it's relevant with the 8 policy areas that I've mentioned. So that's for the young people. But for organizations, municipalities, cities, it's also very easy to submit any event that's youth-related, any sort of activity. There's a submit button. You just go on the European Youth Portal, European Year of Youth, and then you can submit your event, and our team will validate it, and it will become online. So it gives the label of the Year of Youth to the events, and it's very nice because then it means more young people can take part in those debates.
A last one?
A last one. On the 7th of April until the 21st of April, we are opening the 5th round for Discover EU. In the context of the Year of Youth, we are giving 35,000 travel passes. We've decided to increase this number to really make it a big celebration of youth this year. It's for young people aged 18, so I'm not sure it concerns anyone in this audience, but we have friends, families, and you can spread the words about this initiative. It's about green travel, it's about connecting, and it's a very beautiful initiative that young people love very much.
Thank you. And one last question, but let me remind people that you actually did produce some slides, which will be, so these, some hashtags and particularly some links to everything that you've mentioned here in Daphne's, I think you did 3 or 4 slides, will be available via email later this week, okay? So no panic, you can get those links. Last thing, a bit of a repetition of the question that I asked to our first speakers. What should cities do during European Mobility Week? But, you know, as a synergy with European Year of Youth, to really engage young people in this topic of mobility and sustainable mobility. What would be your tip or your wish?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, obviously young people are very involved in the transition to a healthier planet. We see it with initiatives like the Fridays for Future. So I think anything involving young people in finding solutions to make our cities greener via more effective mobility, I think they can be involved in this kind of event, in this kind of conversation, and I'm pretty sure it's already the case in many cities.
And also not just involved, I think the drivers of and the multipliers of, absolutely, because that's where there is a lot of energy and passion and a lot of ideas. I mean, just take Rubin as a very good example.
Yes.
Thank you so very much. Again, genuinely, I could sit with you for hours here. I cannot, but you've been fabulous and so precise. So do check out the information that's on those slides. You've been brilliant. I think you're going to stay around a while, or if not...
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
I know there's a great training coming up, so...
Yes, there is a great training coming up. So please, a warm round of applause to Daphne, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are allowed to relax off stage, and don't worry to the next 2 lovely ladies who are coming on in terms of minutes. It all comes out in the wash at the end of the day, and I know it's very precise, your training, so I'm not going to suddenly say you've only got 22.5 minutes, I promise. So what is happening now? It's absolutely fabulous. We've got a workshop within a workshop. It's a very wonderful initiative as well, a very practical one and a very relevant one. So please join me on stage from ICLEI. We have Strategic Communication Officer Schuyler Cowan and Media and Outreach Officer Priscilla, Castro. And you really are obliged to give them a warm round of applause as well, please. Because it's kind of scary, the first time. After a while, you just want to get on stage, don't you? You just want to do your thing.
Desperately.
Very briefly, so I don't take your crucial minutes. What's the reason behind this training? Why have we got this training today for these good people and those online?
Yeah. Thank you. So we're doing this training today because we noticed that a lot of times maybe it's a bit more difficult to communicate with audiences or demographics you might not feel as connected with. And obviously social media is a really great tool and something that is actually quite strategic, even if it's really fun. And so we hope to offer you some inspiration and some ideas that you can use to either strengthen the work you're already doing, or maybe you'll try something new.
So what are you going to focus on? Specifically social media? Is that
Yeah, so today we're going to focus on social media. We unfortunately only have a limited amount of time, so we'll give a little bit of a background, some research, some statistics, and then Instagram is what we're looking at today.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So you have 40 minutes minus 2. Just invite me to pop back at the end, okay? I'll pop back at the end to take us into the next break, but the floor is yours. I'm very excited to watch this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Katrina, and thank you, Daphne. And thank you to all of those who have joined us today, both in person and online. We're super excited to have you and to learn a little bit more about how we can connect with youth specifically. As Katrina said, my name is Schuyler. I'm 28 years old. I work for ICLEI Europe, and I work as part of the European Mobility Week Secretariat, helping to organize its communications. And my colleague Priscilla and I today hope that we can offer you some specific tips and tricks, some do's and don'ts for social media, for Instagram, that will help you to connect with this audience more successfully. So first things first, Daphne mentioned this a little bit already, but when we're talking about youth, who exactly are we talking about? It's quite a large group, actually, and so we've heard that Eurostat says youth is between the ages of 15 to 29. According to the United Nations, youth is between the ages of 15 to 24. Lots of social media platforms require you to be 13 years old to join, so there's a really big group of people who will fall into this category, and we're thinking more or less early teens to late 20s, early 30s. So that's always something to keep in mind when you're thinking about how you want to reach, because you'll probably talk to a 13-year-old differently than the way you would talk to someone in their late 20s or early 30s. But no matter who you're talking to in this group, one thing is pretty certain, and that's that they probably use social media to communicate. For this group, social media is perhaps the most powerful tool to communicate in real time. It's something that a lot of us and that people today are using to learn, process information, to interact with other people, and to access platforms that they might not otherwise be able to access. So I'm sure that some of you, or I hope some of you, already use social media in your personal and professional lives. And we'd actually like to know in our audience which platform you're using. So in a second, you'll see a question pop up. You have the QR code for those of you who are in our audience. For those of you who are joining us online, you'll just see the question pop up on your SparkUp platform and just answer on the right side of the screen. And so the first question I'd like to ask you is, in a professional capacity, which social media channel do you use the most? So in a second, I think we'll see the question here on screen, and I'll give you a little to answer. We obviously don't have all of the options, but these are just some of the more popular ones. So we're seeing Instagram, which is great. That's what we like. Facebook, also very popular. We have Twitter. No TikTok. So far, what I'm seeing, okay. That's okay. Great, so this actually makes a lot of sense. You can keep answering if you'd like, but this makes sense because when we look at what the most popular platforms are globally, Facebook is still the most popular social media platform in terms of monthly active users. It has almost 3 billion. Instagram is also really popular and still growing. It has between 600 million and 1 billion monthly active users. Twitter has a little bit less. It has 330 million. But actually, TikTok is growing very quickly. It's already surpassed Twitter and Snapchat and a few other platforms in terms of how many users it has. So thank you for sharing your answers. I'm going to actually ask you another question now, and that's going to be more about our age group today. So think about someone who's between the ages of 18 to 24. When you think about reaching out to this person or these people on social media, which platform do you think is best to use? And now what you're going to see is this is a word cloud, so you can type any answer that you want, so any platform that you've heard of or that you use. But 18 to 24, which platform do you think is the best to reach that particular age group? So I'll let the answers come in. You can take a few seconds to answer, and then we'll see it here on our screen. So obviously, there's really a lot of choices. What we had before, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch. OK, in live, we're seeing some. OK, great. No Facebook so far, which is interesting. Discord, that's a good one. OK, YouTube, yeah, YouTube also. YouTube has 2 billion monthly active users. It's a very popular platform. OK. Great. So we have some of the platforms we saw before and a few new ones like Snapchat and Twitch. And just a little bit of background in terms of the age group we're thinking about, 18 to 24. Twitter, for example, 17% of its audience, of the demographic, is 18 to 24. Whereas for Facebook, it's about 30 or 24%, so it's a little bit more, 24%, who fall in this age group. And then you move to Instagram, which a lot of people picked up on, and that has, on average, a younger user base. And so 2/3 of its users are actually between the ages of 18 to 29, and 32% are in the group that we're thinking about right now. And then you have TikTok, where 50% of their users are under the age of 30, and 41% are between the ages of 16 to 24. So obviously, you can reach different people on all platforms, but some prioritize different content. So TikTok, there's a lot of social media challenges. Instagram, as you know, really engaging visuals. And whatever choice you make will depend on who you'd like to connect with and what they'd like to see. So then I have another question for you. We're still thinking about our age group 18 to 24. And it doesn't matter which platform you are using. What do you think is the most important thing when creating content? So is it having a really appealing visual? You'll see a question again in a second. But is it having a really appealing visual, maybe a meme or a GIF or a video, something that's fun and relevant? Is it how you write the post? Is that really important? Or the hashtags that you're using, the people that you're tagging? So what do you think is most important when you're trying to write a post for someone in the age group of 18 to 24? OK, wow. So we have a lot of people who are looking for the visual element. That makes sense. A few people as well for the hashtags and tagging accounts. All of the above is also a great answer. So obviously, if you can, of course, the best thing is to balance all of these, because depending on the platform you're using, some things will be given more priority than others. But the more that you can create sort of a comprehensive or holistic approach to these elements, the better it will be. As we'll see with what Priscilla is going to say later, there's some elements that are going to give a first impression, and they're, of course, very important to focus on. But no matter what you're choosing and how you're communicating, one thing that's true for all platforms is that the way in which you communicate with youth, with young people, and the way in which you interact with them is really important. And what we've seen in our experience, and what we've seen using the European Mobility Week social media channels and in our own social media experiences, that faces and places are really important. People like to connect with stories. They like an approach that's conversational, straightforward, casual, not too formal, and they want to see other people. So for young people, too, that will mean hopefully spotlighting some of these voices. And another sort of tip that we would have that's really important to think about is, OK, we have this 18 to 24 example that we're thinking about now. What is appealing to them? What are their needs? What would they like to know about? And if you don't know the answer to that question, a huge part of successful social media communication is doing the research and listening and evaluating, right? Because there are actually these voices already out there. The idea that young people maybe aren't as interested in sustainable mobility, I think we know is just not true. So you have lots of great organizations like Youth for Public Transport, you have Youth for Road Safety, you have Generation Climate Europe. And so they're making connections with things like affordable and accessible public transport and how that impacts how students travel. They're making connections with inclusive road safety efforts, inclusive sustainable urban mobility planning, and obviously the connection between climate neutrality and improved or accessible public transport, sustainable mobility. And that's something we can see that young people are really passionate about. So I'm actually going to ask Ruben to join me again on stage. And if you weren't here for the first session, Ruben is a 24-year-old master's student. He's in his last year of his Erasmus Mundus Master in European Politics and Society, and he's also the Clean Mobility Coordinator for Generation Climate Europe. So we're going to hear a little bit from him about social media and his perspective on that. So if you could welcome Ruben back to the stage. We can just stand if it's fine for you. So thanks for joining us again.
No worries.
So we're happy to have you. And so obviously when you're using social media, there's a lot to wade through. There's so much content, and you're seeing it very quickly, and you're seeing an abundance of it. So when you're looking on social media and you see something that's sustainable mobility related or sustainability related, what catches your eye and makes you click on a post?
Yeah, well, first of all, I regret my comments about the age thing earlier because now we're talking about 18 to 24, which I'm almost moving out of. So, and also actually on the platforms, like nobody mentioned LinkedIn as like 18 to 24. Like the commission's trying to be like young and energetic, I hear, but we're trying to be old and serious. So we're all on LinkedIn as well. So that's also a platform which can be used. But yeah, to answer your question, like I think the most important thing for us is that it's on one that we talked about, you know, visuals being really important, faces, pictures, graphs, they're all great. But another thing I would say is that just like be very specific as well. Like we don't need to be told that, you know, it's important to travel sustainably, etc. But like you're all doing like you all have interesting projects going on. You might be doing studies, etc. Yeah, don't be afraid to be very specific in presenting what you're doing, and just make sure to do it in an attractive way. And that's quite a challenge sometimes because there might be quite complex information that you're trying to present in an accessible way. Graphs, I think, are very good. I really like graphs personally, and we try to use them a lot. So yeah, just don't be afraid to be specific, and don't be afraid that it's too difficult, I would say also.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a great tip in general, too, for communications. We want something that's straightforward. As we know, young people, youth, are really interested and knowledgeable about these issues. So the way in which you're communicating that is very important. So another question for you then is when you're on social media, interaction is a really important part and something you really want to do with your audience in general, but also with youth to include them in this conversation that at the end of the day, the work that we're doing will affect them the most, so they need to be an integrated part of that at all times. So you're going through, what makes you interact with a post? Do you like to do quizzes or polls, commenting, tagging friends? What do you like?
Yeah, I feel like this is, I'm a little bit on the old side to answer this effectively, but I think generally, like, we comment a lot. Also, we share things externally, right? Like, posts are shared over different social media networks. I think the main thing, like, the main reason usually for sharing a post is if there's something in there which, you know, leads to something more to read. Like if there's a post which presents like a study which you're interested in, and then there's a link in it to that study itself, that will be a reason for actually sharing that post and have someone then access the study that way, right? So generally, like it's more effective to like actually have, you know, more content behind it than to just have a sort of a post and that's it. If you're trying to increase engagement, I would say.
Okay, yeah, so that makes a lot of sense, and that's something too that we would like, you know, when you're planning for social media, it is a strategy at the end of the day, and it should be fun, and we do want it to be conversational, but as Ruben's also saying, there has to be a point behind that with some substantial information and some content. So thank you so much, Ruben, for joining us again.
Oh, good. No worries.
Thank you. And thank you to Ruben. And now I'm going to hand it over to my lovely colleague, Priscilla, and she's going to give you some specific tips and tricks, some do's and don'ts for my favorite platform, Instagram. So we would really love your participation, and take it away, Priscilla.
Thank you, Schuyler, for this valuable introduction to the importance of social media. If I look nervous, it's because I am. I am used to talk a lot to my 38,000 followers on Instagram, but in my native language and behind a screen, so let's see. Well, as you know, my name is Priscilla. I'm a communications officer with the European Mobility Week, and I'm the person behind the campaign's Instagram account. I took over in the beginning of last year, and since then I'm trying to make it as interactive as possible. I myself am an Instagrammer, as I just told you, even though I'm not in the youth range anymore, as they commented. I passed it by a couple of years. So Ruben, when you said you are leaving youth by 24 years old, that was a bit insulting, but let's keep going. So I have been using Instagram for like over a decade. I really think it's the best platform still out there to connect with different age groups. A lot of people say that even older people don't use it so much, but you can see more and more mayors and politicians there, actually. Since the focus today here is to talk about youth, I'm going to try to give you some tips and tricks and do's and don'ts on how to actually better reach and make them participate. So, to give you a bit of background, just so you know, Instagram was launched in October 2010. Its success was instantaneously. In 2 months, it had already over 1 million users registered in the platform. And that's why, of course, Facebook bought it in 2012 for the incredible amount of $1 billion, which was a lot, considering that Instagram had 13 employees at the time. Well, nowadays, Instagram has over 600 million active users per month and contributes with $20 billion for Facebook annual revenue. So some say it was a right decision. Few numbers for you. People like over 4 billion posts per day on Instagram, which is a lot. And in the platform, there are over 40 billion photos shared. So why is Instagram so beloved, so famous? The first thing you need to understand is that people who use Instagram, they usually love Instagram. They are there because they actually see the value of the platform, and this goes especially to the youth. As you know, teenagers and young adults, they are always in a hurry. They need to see things fast. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to travel. There's a lot to talk. And Instagram is a great way of doing that because it captures the immediacy of the moment. It's a platform that you can actually look very quickly and see what's there and answer and engage in a pace that it's usually faster than other social media. And young people, as Ruben said in the first panel, they want to participate. They want to be involved, not only when it's things related to youth, but in everything. They want to make sure they have a voice, and this voice is heard. And Instagram, I would say it's one of the best platforms to do that. Breaking down exactly what is so appealing about Instagram, I would probably choose 3 points. Exposure. The number of likes and followers and comments make people feel approved and validated. Interaction. Instagram is the best social media out there nowadays. To interact, it has comments and the possibility to share it in other social media, groups, and a lot of tools. We're going to look a bit more in detail in a while. And connection. Since everybody is there, it's very easy to talk directly to your favorite politician, to participate in a live chat with him, or see what your favorite actor from Hollywood is having for breakfast. People really feel close to one another with this. So, you heard a bit of why people love Instagram, why it's so successful. I'm going to touch very briefly, very basically, on how to best use Instagram features to take advantage of that, to get and reach the young people. Of course, Instagram has a lot of stuff, and if I went to go through all over it, we would have to stay here until the end of the week, but I have like 5 minutes to do that, so I separated my favorite things, the things that I use with my Instagram account, which, as I said, I have 38,000 followers, so I've been using it for a while. I talk about travel there, so I kind of got the tricks and the algorithm and try to employ that in the Mobility Week campaign as well. So, first of all, the core of Instagram is the visual. You should really, really use content with good quality. Nobody wants to see a pixelated picture or blurred or very dark if that's not the point. You should focus also on the right formats. As you know, for the feed, Instagram prioritizes the square format, But I think for the past 3 to 4 years, it has also allowed us to have landscape and portrait format in the feed. But you can see the difference. It doesn't really accommodate it very well as it does with the square. And this is something that, yeah, managing the Mobility Week campaign Instagram, I don't get to take the pictures that I post most of the time. And I receive pictures with all formats. So often I see myself in the position of have to cut in them, and sometimes we lose a bit of what's there, I don't know, to show. I receive a lot of panorama pictures, and I have to decide what can be in the picture and what cannot. So for you, for your Instagram, I always advise you to try and prioritize the square format. And of course, this is not the case for story reels and the IGTV, which is basically portrait format. Instagram is very, very big in these interactive videos, and these are always better in portrait format because then the person will see it all over the screen. You can see that I did not mention landscape so much, so this is not the favorite format that Instagram would accept. If you can avoid it, I would advise you to. And of course, Instagram has itself a lot of editing tools that you can play around, and filters. You can see that this is the same picture, but in the second one I chose a preset filter from Instagram, and at least in my opinion it looks a lot better. It's more lively, so it will catch more people's eyes. You really should explore that. If you are bored, or if you are in a plane, if you are in a train ride, you have nothing to do, go explore that, test it out. You can play with the brightness, contrast, structure, everything on it, and it's really worth it because then you will learn what kinds of pictures will look better in what kind of circumstances. Another thing that I would comment is that you really should bring a human side to your Instagram. If you are, if you have your own personal Instagram, or if you are doing a Mobility Week account for your country, for your city, or a campaign of any kind, you should avoid using only graphs or only social media cards, only art designs, because people actually like to see real faces. If you don't want to expose yourself, that's totally fine, but it's very easy to produce content about mobility. You can just go on the street and take pictures of people biking, or e-scooters, or of charging station for electrical vehicles. This is more, I would say, attractive than when you open the feed and you have only graphs or pre-made designs. I brought here 3 examples for you to see. The first one is actually mine. So I talk a lot about travel, and this is actually sharing my personal experiences when I travel. The second one is a couple for Amsterdam, and they share a lot of their experiences with biking around the city. And the third one is from a woman in Vienna, Vienne Sufus photoblog. So she talks a lot about walking around the city, that you actually should use this way of moving around to explore the city if you live there or if you are a tourist. These are very different Instagram accounts from different people with different backgrounds, different languages, different European cities, and talking about relatively different things, even though everything is about commuting. But you can see that there is some similarity in it, right? All of them try to have some lively colors. All of them are showing their faces, even though these 2 who are focused in the city, you see they are posting pictures of a moment with their family or friends, and or holding a poster, participating in some kind of event. This is important because people will feel closer to you. And even in the last one, I really liked that the second picture on the top row. It's a picture at night, so you can see it's dark, but she chose to use a red tram. And most likely she used some editing feature that to make the red more bright, more lively. So this is very, very advisable for you to do when posting pictures. The same with the green here. You can play around a lot with Instagram and with external apps as well. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into that. But this one here, for example, this is in Heidelberg, and I chose to do the dessert more bright than the rest of the city because this is what I was going to talk about. This is a typical food from there. So it's all about connecting what you want to show with what you're going to say. However, even though an eye-catching visual is the core of Instagram, what you write, the caption, the description that you put there is very, very important as well. Compelling stories, cases of successes, innovative projects, they deserve to be described as its best. So the most you can describe as possible, because you don't want people trying to guess what's there, right? Let's say I just posted this, and I didn't write anything. You would have no idea exactly what I was trying to say, right? So it's important that you explain why the picture is there. And if it's a promotion or a dissemination of a result of anything, you have to actually dive deep into that. A good advice that you cannot always do, but you should try, is add a CTA, which is basically a call to action. And this is literally calling people to take action from your post. You can do something like vote on your favorite in the comments, tag your friends, share this with most people as you want, double tap if you like. And this will not only make people engage, but will tell Instagram algorithm that people are liking. And the algorithm will understand that they should show your pictures to more people. Because I don't know if you know, but Instagram only shows your posts to 10% of your followers. The other 90 will never see them. Unless this 10% interact with it very well, then the algorithm will see, oh, okay, so these people are liking, I will show them to the other followers, and then you can also go to the people who don't follow you through hashtags or geolocation or other interactive tools. So it's very important that you focus in this first interaction, so your post can actually, I'm not going to say go viral, but it can actually be shared with other groups of people. These are just a few of the many interactive tools that Instagram have. I chose my favorite 5 because, again, I don't have time to go through all of that. But one thing that you should always, always, always in every post, this is the only thing I'm going to say always because it's actually very important, is the hashtag and the geolocation. You don't have to use 30 hashtags, which is the limit for Instagram, but you have to use at least one. Because this is where people will find you. So if you want to talk about sustainable mobility, hashtag sustainable mobility. And then people who are interested in this topic will find you there. Location, if you are posting something about Madrid or Zaragoza or Lisbon, tag it there. So people who are interested in things in the cities will also find you through there. And we have these other tools, so people will have the possibility to interact with you. We have polls, quiz, ask me a question, which is my favorite, the question box, links and rating. Rating is this one here with the eye hearts, when actually people can say how much they liked. And again, they will not only feel involved, as they love to, but the algorithm will understand that people are getting involved with your posts and will show your posts to more people. The algorithm, I should say, changes every year. So being big on Instagram is about being up to date. You have to keep reading because for some reason they are always changing. What is good, what is bad, and what to do and what not to do. But interactiveness, hashtag, and geolocation are always a constant. You should always invest on that. Since our goal here is to reach and engage youth, I suggest you do a business account. So when you create your profile, or if you already have one, you have the option to have a personal account or a business one. And a business one is good because it's going to tell you who are your followers, gender, what times are the day they are more active. They're going to tell you cities. So this is from European Mobility Week. You can see we have more followers in Istanbul, Milan, Madrid, Berlin, and Lisbon than in the other cities of the world. And we have a balanced gender rating there. And this is about the past week. So this is very nice to help you create your next campaigns. I'm going to show you some examples of 2 climate activists that I personally really like their Instagram accounts. I followed them for a while. The first one is Luisa Neubauer. She's a German climate activist. She's one of the leaders of the Fridays for Future movement in Germany. And the other one is Vanessa Nakate. She's from Uganda, and she's also an environmental activist. And you can see they're both very big on Instagram, 358,000, 165,000. And Vanessa specifically has grown a lot of Instagram. Her Instagram is actually an instrument of power that actually helps her connect. Let's see a bit of their profile, what they are using, and see if you can relate and recognize to anything I mentioned now. So they are posting their own faces, they are sharing links, they are using hashtags all the time, they are tagging their friends. Luisa is sharing a lot about her activist journey and interviews. And this is her talking directly to the followers. You can see that she opened a question box and she's answering people. See, and people really, really like that. Okay, I think since this was very fast, I know, but unfortunately we don't have time to go through everything. I would like you to participate a bit in this exercise. So I'm going to give you two hypothetical situations. Let's say you have to do an Instagram post for these situations. People who are at home, you can answer as a poll as it will come. And people who are here, you can again scan the QR code. So let's say you have to promote an interview with an expert on mental health. You interviewed this expert on mental health, and you want to promote this post. Which picture would you choose? 1, 2, 3, or 4? You can vote. Great, I am happy, actually. So with all this fast presentation that I did, that's great, that's correct. Okay, can we move back to the slide? So most of people voted for the first one, great. Can you go back? Okay, this. And now we're talking about a cycle event that took place in your city. So I chose Berlin there, but let's say you organized the cycling event in Berlin, and you want to say how great it was. Which picture would you choose? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Okay, very good. Also correct. Most of the people. Okay. We can go back. We can go to the next slide. So most of the people got it right. Why the picture of the person who were interviewed? Because this will bring a more human aspect to this post. People will actually feel more interested in reading than, you know, by seeing actually who was speaking than just, I don't know, a graphic or a social media card. And you can see that I finished the caption with a call to action. Tag here who would you like us to interview next. And the second one, I see that people chose the kids in the bike, but since this is about disseminating the result of an event that took place, this would be the best picture, because you want to talk about how many people were there, who was there. And you can see that I used the hashtag that I created, Bike for Positivity, and then you were giving the most important information first. 10,000 people were there, and then you are also finishing with a call to action. And you, have you already registered for our next event? So you are already teasing them that there will be a next event soon. That's it. It's a lot to say in a very limited amount of time. Thank you. Catherine, you can resume your post. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You were both, it's difficult, it's mad, isn't it? There is so much to say, but seriously, just for your enthusiasm and your knowledge and your brilliance, and just for being utterly delightful, thank you very much. A quick question for either of you. Do we need to let people know if slides are available?
So that's a great question. We actually have made sort of a one-pager, potentially two-pager of some of the do's and don'ts, tips and tricks that have been shared in this session. That will be shared with you who participated in the event via email, but it will also be available on the European Mobility Week website probably later this week.
I love the way that it's a one-page, potentially two pages. What is that driver to go into a second page then?
The first one was with do's and don'ts, but I really think it would be important to share the examples, like the correct ones, so they actually understand why, and they have some examples of what to do based on those tips that we shared before.
Good. A few things that maybe I didn't catch, but are important, they interest me, because I'm so young and don't use Instagram. What's the deal with tagging a celebrity? When you talked about tagging names, is that a stupid question or not?
I wouldn't really say tag a celebrity, because probably it won't get to them unless there's like 2,000 tags. But
not to, I mean, to look like you're linked to something that has an interest to, let's say it's sustainability, Leonardo DiCaprio. Would one ever do that? Or
I personally wouldn't. I think I would prefer go to his profile and try to interact with him there, because Leonardo DiCaprio actually opens a lot of question boxes.
Okay.
So this would be, of course, there are, I don't know, he might receive 1 million and he's going to answer 3, but would be a best way, because if you tag, I think it's very hard that we'll get to them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. When you talked about data at the beginning, do young people need some kind of cute incentive for a freebie, a cash, a this or that, to take part in something that would give data or not?
No, I don't think so, and that's something that Ruben was saying a bit too. You know, I think we've already very clearly seen that oftentimes young people, the opinions they're sharing, their ideas, their voices, they're already really interested. If you have something like that, like a really great initiative, as Daphne was sharing, there's a bunch that are happening this year for the European Year of Youth, with real substance, and that's really great to share that. But there has to be something behind it. It shouldn't just be, we're trying to get your attention just to get your attention.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so having a free ride in Leonardo DiCaprio's electric car
might be prime.
That's just the dream.
Okay. Last one. How often? How often? When do people just get enough already? Don't send me anything else. How do you make that judgment of what to put out there?
One of the points is be consistent. You don't want to be a ghost there, right? You want people to remind you. We want actually to reach out to people, but don't overdo it.
Yeah.
So I would say also have a diverse pool of people to reach out to. Do not always go to the same people so they don't feel like overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And do not disappear. Remind them that you're there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great. All good? Yes, we will close this session. You've been absolutely fabulous. Thank you so very, very much. And
thank you.
Yes, a warm round of applause, please. You stay with me as I'm going to take all of these good people, including your good selves, into another 10-minute break. So that obviously includes all those lovely people at home. Last uplifting session. This is all about practical stuff. We're going to hear from 6 speakers from different countries, different cities, actually, who are going to share with you some inspiring mobility action practices that could be adopted, that could be adapted, that can be replicated elsewhere. So you really need to hear those. You can ask questions. Everybody online can ask questions as well. And of course, when you take this break, please, I just tweeted. God, why did I do it in that ridiculous voice? I just tweeted. So you should tweet too. There we go, #MobilityWeek. So thank you very much and see you all very soon. Don't go away too far. Thank you. Thank you very much.